said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he? Really, who is he?
I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's going to say she's never heard of carbs.
Joy Behar walked into the studio thinking it would be just another regular day on The View. She had her usual confidence, her signature smirk, and a coffee cup in hand, ready to unleash her opinions like always. But what she didn't realize was that Greg Gutfeld had arrived prepared. And not just prepared, but locked, loaded, and ready to dismantle everything she stood for on live television. The energy shifted the moment Greg was introduced. You could feel it, like a storm, quietly brewing backstage, waiting to crash into daytime TV with no mercy. Joy greeted him with a thin smile, probably thinking she could handle whatever he tossed her way. But she had no clue what kind of verbal storm was about to hit. Greg didn't even need to raise his voice. He simply leaned forward and said with a grin, "Some people pretend to be bold, but hide behind the safety of a script." That one sentence made Joy blink faster than usual. The audience felt it too. You could almost hear the silence grow louder. Joy tried to change the subject, but Greg wasn't letting go that easily. Not today. He began pointing out her past statements, each one more embarrassing than the last. The way he laid them out was like peeling layers off a disguise, one contradiction at a time.
Seriously, her denial of knowing me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch and Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo. The motives stink worse than Joy Behar's jog bra. I mean, assuming she jogs. Oh, wait, there she is. She has a point. Maybe I am obsessed, but some people are obsessed with Bigfoot, and they don't get to see him on TV every afternoon.
Joy laughed, but it was forced, a shaky, nervous kind of laugh. Her hand went straight to her cup, fingers gripping tighter than before. She was trying to hold it together. And then Greg hit her with a brutal line. "The problem isn't that you have opinions, Joy. It's that you treat them like facts." The crowd gasped while Joy's jaw locked in place. That was the moment it became clear. This wasn't just a guest appearance. This was a televised takedown unfolding in real time, and Joy was caught in the center of it. Greg kept his tone calm, but his words were sharp enough to slice through steel. Joy's signature eye roll lost its power. It didn't land, not this time. She tried to interrupt, but Greg raised his eyebrows and kept going, reciting one of her recent misfires, line by line, and then asking, "So, was that scripted, or did you just believe it at the time?" Boom. The camera zoomed in on Joy's face. Her nostrils flared, her lips parted, but the words weren't coming out. It was as if her whole system was stuck on pause. Greg folded his hands, not smug, just patient, like someone who knew the truth would speak for itself. Meanwhile, Joy looked to her co-hosts, but none of them dared to jump in. This wasn't playful banter anymore. It had transformed into a battle of dignity, and Joy's grip was slipping fast. Her legendary comebacks had vanished.
And last week, Joy Behar accused Elon Musk of being pro-apartheid, but then begged him afterwards not to sue. Musk lawyers have yet to comment because they're still checking to see if it's legal to sue a cow.
Shots fired.
Just a legal question. I don't know why it's so upsetting. I don't make the rules in this country. All right.
She finally blurted something out about respect, but Greg calmly nodded and replied, "Respect has to be earned, not demanded." That hit harder than a falling brick. The tension in the room could have shattered glass. Even the studio lights seemed to press down harder, making Joy sweat beneath her carefully powdered face. The woman who built a career on making others uncomfortable was now visibly rattled, blinking fast, tapping her pen, looking for any escape she could find. And Greg? He leaned back in his chair like he'd just finished a workout. "I'm just asking questions," he said, but every viewer at home knew what he really meant. Joy's breakdown didn't happen all at once. It came in pieces. First her voice cracked, then her tone shifted, and finally, her entire presence seemed to shrink right in front of the cameras. She tried to smile again, but even that looked painful. What was once her power, her sass, her sting, her spark, had flickered out completely under Greg's unshakable glare. Greg didn't let up, not out of cruelty, but because the moment demanded honesty. "You've built a career calling everyone else wrong," he said. "But who checks you, Joy?" The silence was deafening. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. It was as if her voice had packed its bags and left her stranded in front of millions. Even her co-hosts looked uneasy. They shifted in their seats, avoiding eye contact, as if watching a slow-motion collapse they couldn't stop. Then Greg dropped another bomb. "You pretend to represent everyday Americans, but how many of them do you actually listen to?" The studio crowd gasped again. Joy muttered something about doing her job, but it didn't land. It sounded like someone reading from a script they didn't even believe in anymore. Greg nodded politely, but his eyes were fierce. "You don't speak for the people, you speak over them," he added. And that shot went straight through whatever defense Joy had left. The producers didn't cut to commercial. They knew this was ratings gold. But what they caught on camera wasn't just tension, it was truth, laid bare for all to see.
It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. It's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. How can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're an honest scum.
Joy shifted again, crossed and uncrossed her legs, adjusted her mic, anything to regain control. But her grip on the moment was slipping faster than anyone expected. Greg's smirk wasn't cruel. It was confident. He knew he'd hit a nerve. And once that happens on live TV, the unraveling is impossible to hide. She tried one last jab, referencing something Greg had said on a previous show, but he parried it like a pro. "Nice try," he said with a smile, "but quoting me doesn't erase your own record." The crowd started murmuring, and Joy heard it. That sound, the sound of people seeing through the mask, it rattled her more than any insult ever could. And then came the line that broke the dam. Greg looked straight at her and calmly said, "This isn't personal, Joy. It's just the truth finally catching up to you." Boom. That hit like thunder. Joy's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her cue cards, but even the paper couldn't save her. She looked down, but the words on the page suddenly seemed useless. Every pause in her speech felt like a crack in her foundation. The Joy Behar everyone knew, the fiery, fearless commentator, was dissolving under the weight of Greg's calm storm. And Greg, he didn't gloat. He just kept speaking the truth, step by step, like peeling paint off a wall that had been hiding something rotten underneath. Greg nodded, leaned back, and let the silence hang in the air like a victory flag. He didn't need to say another word. His point had been made with precision and power. The audience erupted, not in laughter, not in cheers, but in stunned realization. They had witnessed something rare. Joy Behar had been completely humbled on her own turf. Joy sat frozen in her chair, blinking slowly as if her brain was buffering under pressure. She reached for a reply, but found nothing but silence and shame. Greg looked her way again. But this time, his gaze wasn't confrontational. It was victorious, like a chess master watching his opponent finally realize they've been in checkmate for 10 moves. A few in the crowd tried to clap, unsure of what emotion they were supposed to show. Was it shock? Was it sympathy? No one knew, but everyone felt it.
Here's Joy Behar talking about refusing to share a kidney.
I find it friends bizarre. With a Trump supporter. I won't give them a kidney, but I could be friends with them.
Hey, Joy, it's a kidney, not a pizza. Of course, she's kidding at first, but then she goes on to explain the moral foundation for her resentment, and it's the same one that drives all deadly ideologies.
Joy tried to pivot, mentioning a completely unrelated topic, but the transition was so awkward it made everyone in the room cringe harder than ever before. And then Greg struck again, without even raising his voice. "Changing the subject doesn't change the truth, Joy," he said, with a grin sharp enough to slice glass. Joy's lips parted, but the words came out like static. I just think... But she stopped herself, realizing even she wasn't convinced by what she was about to say. One of her co-hosts gently placed a hand on her shoulder, but that small gesture only made things worse. It made her look like the one who needed saving. The woman who once owned every segment now looked like a guest on her own show, lost, shaken, and completely overpowered by a guest she thought would be easy to dismiss. Social media lit up instantly. Clips from the moment exploded across every platform. "Joy Behar gets humbled live," read one viral headline, followed by a flood of reaction memes. Some viewers said, "She had it coming." Others posted, "Even Joy's eyelashes looked like they gave up." And it was hard to argue with either take. Greg sipped from his mug, calm as ever, watching the room squirm, while Joy tried to summon a version of herself that didn't exist anymore, not in that moment. When she finally did speak, her voice was thin and quivering. "I think we need to reset," she said, but no one was buying it. "You can't hit undo when the clip has already gone viral." Greg responded with nothing but a smile, a quiet, knowing smile that said everything without saying a word. Joy knew it too, and that realization burned more than any insult ever could. And then came the breaking point. Her hand reached up to her temple, rubbing in circles as if she could massage the humiliation out of her skull. But the cameras were locked on her every move. In that moment, Joy wasn't the fierce firebrand. She was just a person unraveling in public.
Now to some news. The feral monsters of The View say they've never heard of you-know-who. True, the show that makes mornings hell claim that my name doesn't ring a bell. It's time for...
Our view on The View. Ugh.
Yeah, the witch's coven finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently, the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys. Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
And every second was captured in high definition for the world to see. She tried to wrap things up, to steer the segment to a close, but even her words stumbled over each other. It was like watching a building collapse, slow, loud, and impossible to stop. Greg leaned forward and said, "The difference between us, Joy. I don't pretend to be something I'm not." That sentence landed like a sledgehammer on a glass table. Joy's eyes welled up, but she blinked fast, determined not to let a tear fall on live TV. But everyone watching knew. That wasn't frustration. It was heartbreak behind the makeup. The moment stretched, silent, thick, unforgettable. Even the floor crew held their breath, unsure of what was about to happen next. But the damage was done. The clip had already been clipped, captioned, and blasted across every platform. It was the kind of moment that doesn't just trend, it shakes the internet. On social media, people couldn't believe what they had just seen. This was like watching a lion get tamed by a house cat, one user wrote, and it spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, Joy's co-hosts awkwardly tried to salvage the segment, laughing nervously, changing topics, pretending nothing just happened. But the tension hung over the set like a fog that wouldn't clear. Producers finally cut to commercial, but it was too late to clean up the mess. The wreckage was already in the spotlight, and Joy Behar was at the center of it. Backstage, reports say she didn't speak to anyone for a few minutes, just sat quietly, staring into space while staff avoided eye contact and whispered in hushed tones. It wasn't anger that filled the room. It was something more devastating: disbelief. Joy Behar, a titan of daytime TV, had just been undone by a guest she once dismissed as irrelevant. Greg Gutfeld, on the other hand, walked out like nothing happened. Calm, casual, even cheerful, as if he'd just wrapped up a segment on Saturday cartoons. The contrast was startling. One left the stage as a victor, poised, relaxed, and smiling. The other exited, looking like she had just faced a Category 5 storm, with no umbrella. News outlets picked up the story within the hour. Greg Gutfeld silences Joy Behar in brutal live showdown. Headlines blared, and the footage played on loop for the rest of the day.
Terrible. Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott dropped by the Furry Five earlier today, and I thought the U.S. had a distinct policy against torture. He took the opportunity to call them out over crap Joy Behar recently said about him, specifically that he doesn't get systemic racism, which is like saying Brian Stelter doesn't get Ben and Jerry's. But Joy Behar gets racism, after all. She's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Brian Kilmeade wants to hang out.
Commentators on both sides weighed in. Some called it a much-needed reality check, while others claimed it was cruel and uncalled for. But regardless of opinion, no one could deny it was powerful. The View's PR team rushed into action, crafting statements and trying to spin the moment. But no statement could erase the look on Joy's face when her entire persona cracked. Clips of her blinking, fumbling, trembling, paired with Greg's calm takedown, became memes, remixes, even late-night monologue punchlines. The takedown had become a pop culture juggernaut. Some fans defended Joy, saying she was simply caught off guard. But even they admitted she's never looked that shaken, ever, and that's saying something. Insiders revealed that Joy refused to speak about the segment for days afterward. She didn't want to relive it, one staffer whispered. She said it was the worst day of her career. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld's name trended for days. Interviews, commentary, invitations. He was everywhere. He had gone viral without even raising his voice. The most haunting part? Joy had always believed herself to be invincible on that stage, untouchable behind her years of experience and sharp wit. But in that one moment, the illusion shattered. And what made it unforgettable was that Greg didn't humiliate her with insults or shouting. He used truth, calm, cutting, and unrelenting truth, and it dismantled everything Joy had built in seconds. It wasn't just a breakdown, it was a broadcast reckoning, a reminder that even the loudest voices can crumble when faced with cold, unapologetic clarity. And as the weeks rolled on, people kept watching the clip, not for laughs, but for impact. It became a masterclass in how composure can conquer noise, how calm can overpower chaos. Joy Behar may return to her chair, may reclaim her voice, but that moment will always linger. It wasn't just a slip-up, it was a televised collapse that rewrote the rules of daytime dominance. And Greg, he walked away from it all with a smirk and a legacy moment under his belt. Because that day, in that chair, with nothing but words and wit, he made the unthinkable happen. He silenced Joy Behar on her own show, in her own house, and in front of the entire world. And that is a moment TV will never forget.